Good afternoon, Your Highnesses, Excellencies and Dignitaries, members of the ABLF network, and all of our wonderful guests here today. My name is Resham Kotecha. I'm a policy and strategy specialist based in the UK, and as ever, I am delighted to be here at the ABLF City. I'm about to introduce a brilliant entrepreneur to you all. Many of you will already know her, and if not her by name, her website. So I want to introduce Mona Ataya, the CEO and founder of Mumzworld, to you. She's proven to be one of the Middle East's most prominent female entrepreneurs, with Mumzworld reaching more than 2 million mothers across the region since it founded in 2011. Mona has won more than 80 awards throughout her career, so you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to run through each of them with you now, but she is one of the top 2 Forbes women creating impact in the region. She was voted amongst the 100 most powerful Arab women and was voted SME Executive of the Year 3 years in a row. So Mona, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how and why you founded Mumzworld.
Thank you, Resham, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. I have been an entrepreneur in the Middle East region for a while. Mumzworld is my second entrepreneurial venture. I started my journey in the digital entrepreneurial world with Bait.com, where I was a co-founder of the first jobs board in the region. And then in 2011, I wrote the business plan for Mumzworld. Back then, e-commerce was still very much in its nascent stage. It represented less than $2 billion of sales, which came predominantly from travel and electronics. So FMCG e-commerce back in 2011 was almost unheard of. For us, we identified key consumer need gaps in this part of the world where mothers in the Arab world were not empowered to make informed decisions for their children. Access to products was difficult. Prices were very high compared to the rest of the world. Content about these products in an Arabic first region did not exist. And an Arabic community where mothers can share and engage digitally also did not exist. So we set out to solve these problems and to empower mothers and parents in the Middle East to make the most informed decisions for their children. And we did that through the technology enabler of e-commerce.
And of course, you've had an incredible decade so far with many challenges and opportunities. So what are some of the biggest challenges, opportunities, and lessons that you've had so far with Mumzworld?
When we started Mumzworld, as I mentioned, e-commerce was still very much in its infancy. And as with everything, you need an ecosystem to support you. And e-commerce is about having enablers within the ecosystem that can actually support your success and growth. So back in 2011, payment gateways were limited. Technology talent was very scarce. Even the customer transacting online with credit card was a big question mark. So a lot of the enablers in the ecosystem did not exist. So we had to set out and pave the way and essentially disrupt the ecosystem and create our own ecosystem, which is what we've done over the past 10 years. So that was one of the key initial challenges. The other one is, as with all things that are new and disruptive, there's the initial level of skepticism. So there was the customer skepticism of buying online, and there was the supply chain skepticism of whether e-commerce was a fad or a trend to stay. We knew 10 years ago what we know now, and that is e-commerce is the biggest trend of the decade. It's only going vertical. E-commerce, m-commerce, that's the way the consumer of today is transacting, because the consumer of today wants convenience, wants choice, wants fast access, wants transparency, and all of that is enabled through technology of e-commerce.
And you've talked about the consumer of today wanting the accessibility, the ease, the time, and of course that has only been exacerbated by COVID. And I know that last year, from January to March alone, you witnessed a massive 800% growth in demand. How have you capitalized on this shift to e-commerce, and how did you manage the supply chain challenges that COVID presented?
Sure. So Mumzworld caters to the entire milestone range from a mother's prenatal years all the way to the preteen years. So we capture the mother and the Middle Eastern household from the 3 months prenatal all the way to the 13 years of age. So that's a big range. What we found during COVID is the essentials for mother, baby, and child naturally, with lockdown, with inability to move, the essentials became absolutely imperative. So the diapers, the wipes, the bottles, all the things that a mother had to buy, not wanted to buy, but she had to buy. And we saw a significant hike of that overnight. Now, while increased demand is always great, when the supply chain is unable to cater to that demand, that you have challenges. Just as customers had challenges in mobility, the supply chain also was restricted in mobility. So inbounding products, transporting products cross-border, transporting products in the region was all difficult. So we had to learn, again, to disrupt. How do you reach that customer with those essentials? By doing things differently, by tapping into products that perhaps you didn't tap into before, by some of the things that we did, for example, is we started splitting our orders so that we got to the mother within hours of her ordering the essentials and then splitting the non-essentials for a day later. We started sourcing products from different supply chains to ensure that we weren't out of stocks of the most important products. So again, COVID reinforced our DNA as an agile, fluid, and flexible digital player. And in the world of today, it's all about flexibility, agility, being able to constantly have disruption as the forefront of the way you operate.
And so you talk about some of the elements that helped you and Mumzworld to be able to react quickly and in an agile way. What role do you see government policies playing in your success as an entrepreneur, and what more would you like to see in the future?
So I always say, our starting point was the United Arab Emirates. We started Mumzworld in 2011, as I mentioned, at a time when e-commerce was still a big question mark. And I say that there is no place other than the UAE where we would have been as successful as quickly, because I believe that the UAE has that same DNA of agility, mobility, flexibility, and most important, the entrepreneurship DNA. So in essence, the ecosystem here in the Emirates has enabled us to be agile and has enabled us to constantly recreate ourselves and reinvent ourselves and kind of break the rules to create new rules.
That's fantastic. I like the agility, mobility, and flexibility. And how do you, as a business leader, prepare yourself? Of course, you mentioned this is your second successful entrepreneurial endeavor. So how do you prepare yourself to lead organizations in an increasingly volatile, uncertain, and complex world?
So look, the reality is the world has been going through disruptive change for the past couple of decades, seeing a change in all of our ecosystems. So not just in retail, but across every single ecosystem. So change is the flavor and the term of today's world. What COVID brought with it is an acceleration of already a vertically growing or a vertically changing world. And for us, the core to disruption and the core to innovation is the people element. So we try to hire entrepreneurs, we hire people who are not satisfied with the status quo, who are comfortable with lack of certainty, who are comfortable with operating in an agile and flexible way. So hiring the right people and making sure that we are aligned on that finish line, which, by the way, in a world of disruption, that finish line is really oftentimes a vision. It's something that doesn't exist. it's something that probably has a lot of question marks and skepticism from the people around you. But insofar that you believe that end goal is going to have a positive ecosystem impact, and you hire people who are equally aligned with that ecosystem impact, you will do well. That's the first thing. The second thing is technology. We are a technology company. That's what we are. We are driven by creating best-in-class technology and constantly evolving that technology. So these are, for me, the two core things: be driven by ecosystem impact, hire the best people who are driven by a similar cause, and ensure that your technology is constantly evolving and adapting and best in class, and ultimately catering to unmet consumer needs, which is essentially what we're all doing here. What are consumers' pain points, and how are we addressing them with technology enablers?
I want to pick up on that, because I think your point about people is so valuable. And I know that you've mentioned in the past that hiring for SMEs and startups is one of the biggest challenges for an entrepreneur. You've talked about vision and something that's not necessarily tangible. So how do you, in your role as an entrepreneur, employ people that align with your vision? How do you find them? How do you make sure that they're aligned with the vision that isn't tangible?
Sure. So just as this is your greatest opportunity for growth, it is also your most difficult venture. Hiring and retaining the best people. In the early days as a startup, you are strapped for cash. Your expectations are for people to come in, work longer than they've ever worked before, on a vision that's oftentimes undefined, and get paid probably less than they've ever been paid before. And essentially, you're selling them an idea, you're selling them a promise. So it takes a certain type of person to join you along this journey and to say, yes, I'm going to work harder, get paid less. And oh, by the way, I'm going to trust you enough that that end goal is important enough. And so there's a lot of hit and miss. And then as you grow as a business, and as you have the momentum, and as you establish a reputation as a business, you begin to attract better talent. Now, with all of that, I fundamentally believe, and this has been my experience in all the brands and the businesses that I have been involved in, ultimately, if the business you're building has an ecosystem impact that is important enough, and you're truly delivering on these important consumer needs, you will find the talent that wants to join you on that important mission, which is what we have done with Mumzworld.
And you talked about trust, and I think that's really, really important as a point, because not only do you need to engender trust amongst your employees, especially in the early days, but you also need to engender that trust with your customers too. So how do you tackle those two elements, especially when your entire business is an e-commerce, so you're not actually face to face with your customers?
Your relationship with your customer is just like your relationship with your team, your spouse, your children, anyone else. And if I were to summarize it in two sentences, the first would be, am I solving your pain point? Am I solving your pain point? And the second is, am I delivering on my promise? So if I promise you something, whether it is a best-in-class product, or a 2-hour delivery, or a prize with your product, am I delivering it with excellence? Am I delivering it uniquely? And insofar that you're able to do that, the customer will stay with you. The problem or the challenge with technology, and I would say for us in the early days and with the supply chain, is we were developing our technology from nothing. So a lot of it was trial and error. And I would say we failed more in the early days than we succeeded. So for every good product we sent out into the market, we had also sent out 10 bad products. So, and also in the supply chain, again, today the days of delivering in 4 to 6 hours are normal. Back then, delivering in 4 to 6 days was normal. And the number of times we missed on our delivery promise, 8 years ago, were many. So the reality is we have evolved. We have been hit on the hand by the customer. We have been called names by the customers, and rightfully so. But 10 years later, we are stronger for it. We have learned from it, and we know where to make mistakes, where today we cannot afford to make these same mistakes.
And you've obviously got a really deep understanding of your company, but how important do you think it is for leaders to have an understanding of themselves when it comes to setting up a business and successfully guiding others through that change?
No leader knows everything. No leader needs to know everything. What a leader needs to do is surround himself or herself with experts, with people who are better than them, with people who complement them, and who are aligned with their vision. That's the first. And the other thing is a leader has to always be driven by learning. So there are a lot of things that I have learned over the last 10 years. I say I learned something new every single day, and there are many things I have unlearned over the past 10 years. So you need to be driven by learning. You need to be able to attract people who are better than you, who complement you, and who help you learn. And to summarize all of that, you need to be credible and you need to be able to lead, because no one's going to join the bandwagon if they don't believe you, if they're not inspired by you, and who don't want to reach that finish line with you.
So I'm totally on board as a feminist myself, but seeing as we are a day after International Women's Day, why do you think it's important for women to have leadership positions?
For one, women represent 50% of the population. So the voice of the population is with the woman. The woman is the gateway into the household. She's the one making the consumable purchases, the purchases for her children, for her husband, for her home. You empower a woman, you empower a child, you change the world. And what better way to empower a woman than to give her the ability to contribute to the world she lives in. So there's a tremendous amount of value in women using their intelligence, their education, their skills, their psychographics that are unique to men, and their skills that are unique to men. There are, every person, has their skills. For us at Mumzworld, a lot of our leadership positions are led by women. We didn't go out there and deliberately look for a woman, but we found great women that fit into. Our head of technology is a woman, our head of Saudi is a woman, our head of inbound logistics, which is dominated by men, is a woman. And why? Because they're able to, and because they're thriving in these positions.
And I want to pick up on that. I think it's fantastic you've got so many women in senior leadership positions, but tech in general is a male-dominated industry anyway. So how have you found the challenges of that gender balance, or have you found it's not actually been a challenge for you?
So frankly speaking, we don't spend much time. I certainly don't spend much time on this thought about gender equality or gender balance. We build our business based on who's the best on the job. We happen to have found phenomenal women who are driving the ship and who are contributing to the ecosystem. There's no reason to spend time on this gender equality question. We've gone out there and raised 6 rounds of funding as a women-led business. We are actually the deepest funded women-led e-commerce business in the region. We have gone out there and hired the best C-level women. We have gone out there and delivered products that cater to women. And there has been no challenge in this region so far.
That's fantastic, and very encouraging for all the other female entrepreneurs who are looking to follow in your big footprints there. But I want to think about that for a second. You talked about growth earlier on in the session. How have you pivoted your business towards newer markets, and what are the challenges in dealing with the barriers in new markets and different regions?
Sure. So we have expanded across the GCC very early on. Saudi today is a lead market for us, and the UAE, Kuwait is an important market for us. So is Bahrain, Oman. So once you get it right in one market, while there are governance challenges or variations in the different markets, there are logistic variations in the different markets, the fundamentals are the same. So we were able to take the fundamentals and plug and play into the various markets.
And what are your key objectives for Mumzworld in the next year and in the next 10 years looking forward?
So we're building the largest mother, baby, and child company in the Arab world. This is the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa. Our vision is to empower mothers in the Arab world to make the most informed decisions for their children. We're building a 360-degree platform that starts with e-commerce. Content is a big part of e-commerce. So today we have a community of over 2.5 million mothers on our platform who engage, who dialogue, who share, and who support each other. So to continue to build that, ultimately, again, being the gateway into the Middle Eastern household.
And what do you think have been the biggest lessons from COVID that you will take forward in terms of the way you work, or is it a return to business as usual?
So the way we work has changed. As a digital play, we were never restricted by physical location, but what COVID reinforced is that physical location of your work is even less important. So it kind of reinforced that you can be sitting anywhere and doing a great job. So that's the biggest change post-COVID. But what COVID reinforced for us is that speed, agility, flexibility, and constant disruption has to be a DNA that we hold onto. It's the DNA that we hire team members into and we retain. The world is going to continue to change. We need to be at the forefront. We need to be proactive at looking not only at what the customer wants today, which is very different than what she wanted yesterday, but we need to forecast and predict what will she want in a year from now, in 6 months from now, even in a month from now. That's how fast things are changing. And again, using technology to enable that speed and that agility.
And given that technology is the key factor for your enterprise, what do you think should be done to improve the access, the operations, and inclusivity to digital services?
So the beauty of digital is now there are a lot of digital enablers out there. So for new businesses who want to come online and want to build a website, for example, there's a lot of open source solutions out there that are plug and play. There's a lot of technology-enabled sub-services that you can tap into. So the world has changed a lot for newcomers who want to enter the digital space, and it will continue to progress.
And when we talk about progression and change, all challenges lead to evolution. So when it comes to your leadership, how has COVID impacted the way you actually lead your team? I know you said the ways of working has changed, but has your way of leading changed too?
So in today's world of speed and agility, you need to hire and retain essentially entrepreneurs. So in the very early days when we were bringing team members in, we were looking for entrepreneurial qualities. What are these entrepreneurial qualities? Creativity, not being satisfied with the status quo, strategic and analytical thinking, ownership, accountability. All of these are traits that allow you to bring a person in, explain to them the vision, tell them what the end goal looks like, and then essentially tell them, go run with it. Fail fast, learn, and then jump again. And that's the type of team member that we bring on board. So the reality is, has that changed post-COVID? Again, it hasn't changed. What it means that we need to hire more of these people who essentially are their own leaders. who can work in a team but are their own leaders, they're accountable, they have ownership, and they're constantly disrupting.
And you've spoken so passionately about the value of your employees and the team and the importance of hiring the right people. In what ways over the last decade have you pushed the boundaries to really understand your employees better so that you are continually improving your recruitment and retention of staff?
So look, hiring is the hardest thing in starting a business. It really is, because what you're looking for in today's world is very different than what you would have been looking for, 10 years ago. You're looking for a different DNA and you're looking for a different skill set. So hiring that right person is the most challenging. Now, keep in mind, CVs are not very meaningful today. CVs can paint a beautiful narrative. Even an interview can paint a beautiful narrative. It's that first day on the job when you see a person walking from their desk to the elevator, or when you see a person taking the 2-hour break. That's when you begin to see the mindset, the flexibility, the creativity. And so in today's world, you hire a lot of people, you give them their time on the job, and you monitor, you watch, you interact, and you keep the best, and you politely let go not the best. And we've made a lot of mistakes, by the way. I would say in the last 10 years, we've made more mistakes than we have not. But all of our A players have created amazing products. Many of our A players have been with us for many, many years. But again, it's an ever evolving process, but we do hire more than we retain.
I guess that's a really valuable lesson to all the entrepreneurs and business leaders watching, to fail and to fail fast. And sadly, we've only got 1 minute left, but you've talked a lot about the importance of failure. Can you give us an example of one of the biggest failures that actually turned out to be a really valuable life lesson for you and Mumzworld?
Wow. So look, every day presents challenges. No day is easy, and no day is the same as the day before. So I have to safely say that in the last 10 years, I don't know what to expect. Even though our business today, alhamdulillah, is on a steep growth trajectory. We're relatively, more stable than we were, a year ago, and then a year before that. But every day is different. You never know what's around the corner, and every growth stage brings with it different challenges. And this is why you need to be of the mindset of creation. So you go to your job not to do your job, you go to your job to create something new every single day.
Well, Mona, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Your insights have been absolutely fascinating, and I think there are so many valuable lessons there for entrepreneurs and business leaders alike. So thank you so much. For everybody who's joined us, remember that if you missed a part of this session, you can always come back right here to the ABLF City and view this session and any other sessions from the previous conferences anytime after today. Thank you so much again, Mona, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Remember that we are back every month featuring global leaders in powerful conversations.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Take care.